reminders for Ride Weekend, check in on training, a few fundraising tips, and then we'll give everybody the opportunity to ask some questions and do some shout outs. So welcome, everyone. Thank you. And we're really excited to have you on the call, and just wanted to say thank you so much for all that you guys are doing for JDRF. I know the ride itself is a very big commitment, and you guys do such an amazing job every year. And I'm just really proud to work with all of you, and just to have the ability to get to know all of you and your stories, and seeing everything that you guys do inspires me. So just welcome and thank you. Donna is a new rider this year who's joining us for the first time, so we're very excited to have her as well. So welcome, Donna.
Thank you.
And at this time, I'm going to introduce Susan. So Susan is our research information volunteer. She's a member of our board of directors. She is a wonderful volunteer. She's a mom. She just does it all. So I'll turn it over to Susan.
Okay.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can share yours.
Okay, great. Okay. Now we'll see if I can do the screen share the right way, even though I acted like I knew what I was doing when Lindsay was doing it. Okay, let me go to, let's see, slideshow from the beginning. Can you guys, oh, of course I'm at the end. Let's try this. All right, can you see it?
We can.
Okay, great. So as Lindsay said, I am the mom of a son with type 1. He's our youngest of 4, and he was diagnosed when he was 11, and he's coming up on his 10th diaversary on August 5th. So he's basically lived with type 1 half his life. And as the research information volunteer for the chapter, I get to listen in on calls once a month with some of the leading JDRF scientists and just get an update as to what's going on. The fact that this is being recorded is making me super nervous. I hope I don't make any mistakes. So here's my disclaimer at the beginning. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. So if I make mistakes on this, it's on me, not on JDRF or anyone else. But anyway, and we're such a small group. If you guys have questions as we go along, just wave your hands or do something, and I'm happy to answer. I just wanted to give you kind of a quick update. This isn't super detailed, but I have more information about all of these topics than you could ever want to know. So if there's anything you're super interested in, I can email you some more information or answer questions if I know the answer off the top of my head. So we'll get started. So JDRF has 5 research priorities: global universal screening, which I'm not going to talk about right now, disease modifying therapies, cell therapies, improving lives, and training. And I'm just going to talk about 3 of these in sort of broad overview. So I'm going to start with disease modifying therapies. What is that? That is therapies designed to prevent, halt, or reverse the loss of a patient's own beta cells. So we're not talking about injecting them from someone else. It's someone with type 1 or going to develop type 1, helping to protect their own beta cells from the immune system attack or regenerating them. And there's 2 parts to this. One is just rebalancing the immune system to try to keep the immune system from attacking beta cells. And the second part is preserving or regrowing them. Because as we all know, when you've got type 1 diabetes, your immune system destroys those beta cells, so you can't produce your own insulin. And you may have all already heard about this, but there was a drug recently approved by the FDA called Tzield, which was developed by Dr. Kevin Harold out of Yale. And his research has been funded by JDRF for a decade or more. And this is approved by the FDA for patients with stage 2 type 1 diabetes. So I'm sure you're all aware of this, but type 1 diabetes is kind of a progression. We all, people get diagnosed at one point in time, but things have been going on behind the scenes for months or years before that actual diagnosis takes place. So stage 2 is when a patient has already developed autoantibodies and also has irregular blood sugar, but isn't yet showing symptoms like the excessive urination and et cetera. So they still have some beta cells working. They haven't been diagnosed necessarily yet with true diabetes. And Tzield has been shown to delay the onset of type 1 diabetes for an average of 2 years. That's according to the study that was submitted to the FDA. In a lot of patients, it's much longer. And this is a 2-week IV infusion that happens one time, and then it can preserve those beta cells for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And the hope is that once, 5 years from now or 2 years from now, there will be other things that have been developed that might delay it farther. And I know for my son, at least, if he could get 2 years without diabetes, that would be worth a lot to him. So this is super exciting. It's the first drug of its kind to be approved, and it really is in large part due to funding and research funded by JDRF. So the second priority I want to talk about are cell therapies. And this is not preserving your own beta cells. This is taking external beta cells and implanting them in the person with type 1 diabetes. So for my son, who's had type 1 for 10 years, he probably has very few, if any, beta cells even still in existence. So there's two parts to this too. It's to create a reliable source of those beta cells and then find a way to protect them from the immune response once they're implanted. And the first part has actually been done, and I'll show you that in just a second. This is the first patient. His name is Mr. Shelton. He was patient 1. There's a drug called VX-880, which is externally stem cell derived beta cells implanted in Mr. Shelton here. And he had had type 1 diabetes for 40 years. And with these implanted islet cells, he no longer has to take insulin. His body is making its own insulin. The downside to this is that he does have to take chronic immunosuppressant drugs, which has their own side effects. So a lot of the research JDRF is funding is ways to protect those beta cells so you don't have to take these strong immunosuppressant drugs, which can cause cancer and other really bad things. But at least this shows that those implanted beta cells actually do their job and will work. So there's a lot of other, they're talking about ways to protect the cells with just scaffolding, which allows the blood vessels and oxygen to get to the cells. Encapsulation, where they're in an actual device of some sort implanted under the skin. There's a whole bunch of different research that's going on. But the fact that this drug works shows us that, it's possible. So moving on to improving lives. So the disease-modifying therapies and cell therapies are in effect a cure for type 1, because once those are there, your body is either producing its own insulin or these implanted cells are. But unfortunately, right now, none of these are to the stage where we can really use them. So on the improving lives side, we know there's still a lot of unmet needs. Blood glucose control is still a huge challenge. My son's on one of the best artificial pancreas systems, but he still struggles, even with really rigorous management on his part and counting carbs and pre-bolusing. He still has days like yesterday where his blood sugar was just, as he described it, he was on a roller coaster. There's also some metabolic control that's not addressed by insulin alone. And unfortunately, complications are still out there. So JDRF is working on all of these things. And we also know on the mental health side that people with type 1 are disproportionately impacted. It's a huge burden, this disease. It's a mental burden, it's a physical burden, it's a financial burden for families. So JDRF is working on that as well. So looking at the improving lives section, there's 4 parts. I'm not going to talk about all of them: drugs for complications, devices, and the psychosocial burden. So let's start with drugs. Better insulins are one of the things that we are funding. 3 of them are presented here. One is ultra rapid insulin, because we know that even though we have fast insulin now, it's not really that fast. When you eat, your blood sugar spikes, but the insulin goes in more like this, and the spikes don't match up. So an ultra rapid insulin would allow you to take the insulin when you eat the food, and the insulin and the food, the spikes would match up. So that would be better control. Liver targeted insulins, subcutaneously, injected insulin doesn't work as well as the insulin that I make in my own body, which immediately goes to the liver. So they're working on that. And my son's most excited, he really wants this to work, and I hope it does, is the smart insulins, which is glucose responsive insulin, which will allow you to take like 1 injection in the morning. And as the blood sugar rises, the insulin turns on deals with it, and then as your blood sugar goes down, it turns itself off. So it acts more like our own bodies do. So all of these are under development with various companies and in various stages. I just want to take 1 second too to talk about insulin affordability. This is a huge priority for JDRF. And I know there's been a lot in the news. Those of us in Connecticut, I don't know about Mass, but in Connecticut, we're lucky because our legislature a year or so ago set a cap on insulin pricing, but only for people with insurance, which is a little bit disconcerting because they still need that, but it's not working for people without it. But JDRF is actively advocating with insulin manufacturers and the government and health insurance and employers to try to make sure that everybody gets affordable insulin. Brian, my son, did a project on this earlier this year. He's taken a summer school class. He's in college, but he was taking a class and he had to do a commercial. So I was just listening to him do it. He did it on JDRF, funnily enough. But I think he said that at some point in time, almost 2/3 of people with type 1 diabetes at some point in their lifetime try to ration insulin because they can't afford it. And that's just unacceptable. So one of the things JDRF is funded is this nonprofit company called Civica, and they are making their own biosimilar insulin. It'll be similar to, they're making like a Humalog and Lantus. And is there one other, Lindsay? I can't remember. There's at least 2 biosimilars, which they'll sell for a flat fee, regardless of insurance, just to make sure, and it's a nonprofit company. They're not trying to make money on this, but just to make sure that insulin's available for everybody. Okay, moving on. Adjunctive therapies is another thing. We know that insulin only targets blood glucose control, but there's lots of other things that go wrong when you have type 1. You have glucagon dysregulation, which is why you have to have emergency glucagon. You know, if my blood sugar starts to go low, my liver dumps out glucagon and raises my blood sugar back up. But when you've got type 1, your body's natural regulation is messed up. People develop insulin resistant. 2/3 of adults with type 1 diabetes in the US are clinically obese. You can have ketones and other issues. And a lot of the drugs for type 2 diabetes and other autoimmune diseases, there have been trials shown that those help people with type 1 as well, but they have not been FDA approved yet because they've only been tested on people with type 2. So JDRF is funding some of these things too. Some of the, I don't even remember the names of them, but you know, the drugs you see on TV all the time. A lot of these have not just help with blood sugar and with weight loss, but some of them also provide protection for heart disease and kidney disease. So we're funding trials on a lot of these drugs that we know are safe and effective, but until they're tested on people with type 1, the FDA is not going to approve them for type 1. So that's something else being worked on. Devices, I just want to mention one thing. Here's just some of the recent breakthroughs in tech. And I know this is not a cure, and that's what we all want, but I tell you that having an artificial pancreas insulin pump has made a huge positive impact on my son. And so these are just some of the recent things. Almost universally, the algorithms that these pumps are using were developed by research funded by JDRF. And the Tandem Mobi, which is this one, was just FDA approved yesterday. And that's kind of their answer to the Omnipod. It's half the size of the current t:slim, and there's I don't have a picture of it here, but there's like a holster thing you can put it on, and they have short infusion sets, so you can wear it as a patch pump if you want to. And it's controlled only by the phone, not by, there's no buttons or anything on the pump. So that's cool because that happened yesterday. I had to email Lindsay in the middle of the night saying, wait, I have a new slide. This is another thing JDRF's working on that I'm super excited about. One of the problems with some of those adjunctive therapy drugs is that you can develop ketones even with normal blood sugars. And so that's been a big stopping point with the FDA for approving them for people with type 1. So JDRF is funding research into a continuous ketone monitor. And the hope is that you could wear that. It would be one sensor that would both check blood glucose and ketones. So it could warn you, oh, you're developing ketones even though your blood sugar is okay. And I think that would be cool. We had a situation in the winter when we were on vacation, and Brian didn't go into full DKA, but he got sick. And even though his blood sugar was okay, he was developing ketones. He ended up 2 nights in the hospital, which sucked. Not how you want to spend Christmas vacation, but that's what happened. So this would be great because it would give people warning about that too. Can you see I'm picking and choosing the stuff that I'm excited about? I'm sorry to do that. The last thing I want to talk about is just, well, not the last, next last, is the mental health picture of it. And we know that people with type 1 diabetes are more likely to develop depression and other things. And people who have depression, not surprisingly, have higher A1Cs and worse blood sugar control. And it can really be a problem with youth too, as well. And I don't know about you guys. I don't know if you, I should have asked this before I started, if you've got family members with type 1 or if you have it yourself, but this was impactful for my son during COVID. So JDRF has a 4-part strategy to deal with this. One is standardizing some measures of outcomes and getting an international consensus on how you measure these mental health issues. Second is increasing the number of interventions that are available. And third is increasing the number of trained psychology professionals that are used to working with people with type 1. There are, I can't remember the number, but there are fellowships being funded by JDRF to specifically train these mental health professionals to deal with chronic, type 1 diabetes, because it's a different thing. And then I can't see the last thing on my slide. I got to move everybody out of the way. Increasing the access so that people with low income or in underserved communities can still get access to this. So these are all priorities that we're working on. And these are just some of the highlighted projects going on. Cognitive behavioral therapy, telepsychology. There's even a one program where I can't remember the details, but it was almost like a video game for the kids to work together with to improve that. So all this going on and lots more. So looking to the future, there's progress going on in clinical trials. The stuff on the top is in the improving lives section, and on the bottom it's cures. So there's soon to start trials, some underway, and some are awaiting results. And these are just a few of them. So there's so much going on in every single stage of all of these things. I'm really using big words tonight. Sorry, guys. It's been a long day. My dog got me up at 5:30 this morning. Special Diabetes Program, I just want to mention that this is a federal funding for type 1 diabetes research, and it's expiring in September. We were really lucky during COVID that they extended it for 3 years. Usually JDRF and others have to advocate for this every year. So if you haven't signed up yet to become a JDRF advocate, I'll put my plug in for that. It's super easy. You'll get an email with like a canned email that you can send to your legislators to try to advocate for this. So this is a big priority right now. And looking ahead, there's just lots of stuff going on. I didn't really talk about screening, but one of the things that JDRF is working on is trying to advocate to have screening for autoantibodies at like the kindergarten checkup or something, because we know that there are a lot of people out there who some of these therapies could really work for, but if they don't know that they're at risk for developing type 1 diabetes, they can't like take Tzield, because by the time you've developed it, it's too late. So anyway, it's just, there's stuff happening on all sorts of levels. And I love this slide because it really shows that JDRF is working at every single level, from discovery research to regulatory approval, to advocating with insurance companies, to clinical adoption, because it's not going to help us to come up with all these drugs and things that work if they can't be approved by the FDA and covered by healthcare coverage to get it into the hands of patients. So that is my bird's eye view of way too much stuff, but my email, my telephone number are there. I can put them in the chat too. So I'm happy to take questions right now, but also anytime you can email me, call me, text me, and I'm happy to provide whatever information I can. So thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
Does anybody have any questions?
I do actually have a question.
Good, yay.
Susan, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it all insurance companies here in Connecticut, or is it limited a little bit still?
I
Like,
believe that the
different
drug, that the cost thing was imposed on statewide. If you have health insurance, you can't be charged, I think it's more than $25 a month for your insulin. And my son is, 6 foot something. He uses a lot of insulin. So we went from paying $300 a month down to $25 a month when this happened. So that was great. But yeah, but it only applies to people who have health insurance, which I think is crazy, but that's the way it worked.
Right.
Anybody else? Okay, I'll stop my screen share.
Okay. Thank you, Susan. All right.
You're welcome.
I'm going to share my screen again. Let's see. This one. Okay. There we go. All right. So we are going to move on just quickly to some ride weekend logistics. I know the majority of you on this call are veteran riders, but I just thought it would be a good idea just to check in on the weekend logistics, especially for Burlington coming up so quickly. But the majority of these logistics would apply to all of the rides. But I'm going to pass it over to Lindsay.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Lindsay Wells. I think, Donna, we've met on a prior call.
Yes.
Jeffrey, I don't think I've had the pleasure of meeting you, so thank you for joining. I'm based in Western Mass, so Southampton, Mass. I am a mother of 4 teenage girls, which is always lovely. I actually have no direct connection to type 1. I was introduced to JDRF by my really good friend, Deb Connolly, who's actually in this picture with me. This is her and I from Tucson last year. And she introduced me to JDRF in 2017, and I did my first ride in 2018. And then after Tucson, I decided to join the coaching team. And thanks to Jean and Lindsay and the rest of the staff, it's just been a wonderful ride. I was interested to hear Susan talk about kind of like the psychological impact of type 1 diabetes. One of my best friends I met in 2015, her and I are thick as thieves. I had zero idea she had type 1 until 2019. She never told anybody. It was a hidden, like, it was almost like she wanted to shield it from everyone. And then on her birthday trip to Nashville, she ended up in DKA. And she finally, I think, after that experience is more open to it. But I think the stigma around it is tough, and especially for females coming out and talking about it. So I think it's really important to talk about that psychological impact and aspect to it. And on top of all of the other impacts, financial and development. So I think it's really important that JDRF is doing that. So I jumped full in to fundraising, and ever since 2018, I've been going. So here we are, Burlington. So Jean and I had our ride meeting yesterday. It was super exciting. Lots of energy coming into Vermont in a couple weeks, and I'm sure everybody's seen the news, and thankfully Burlington has been spared from the disastrous flooding. So we've been very lucky. But Donna, since this is your first ride weekend, I'm not really sure, are you coming in on Thursday, Friday? I'll just ask the question and then we can kind of go into logistics from there.
Yeah, I'm not going to be coming until Friday.
Okay. So, as the waves of people start coming in, coaches start arriving on Thursday, some team members start coming in on Friday. You'll have a packet. And Lindsay, did the packet already go out and I missed it, or will it be going out? You're muted.
I believe National sent it out Monday or Tuesday, but if for some reason you didn't get it or it went to spam, just let me know. I'm also probably just going to send it out to all the Burlington riders tomorrow, just to make sure that everybody has it. But.
Perfect. So the ride packet, I'm actually referencing it, but has all of the information you could imagine, everything that we talk about, what to bring, what to pack, and the agenda with all of the activities that happen starting on Thursday. So just kind of what to expect. We want to make sure that you're packing all of your necessary supplies to ride. Obviously, helmet's really important, shoes. If you have a headlight, tail light, it's highly recommended. We want to make sure that you have all of the medications that you need if you are a type 1 rider, making sure that you have extra supplies. As far as supporting your bike throughout the weekend, there's a wonderful bike room, and Jean can attest to it. I'm sure Jeffrey can, because I think this is your 9th ride. Yep. So the bike room is hands down the saving grace to the ride. They will help you, the SAG vehicles, the team. So they'll help you get ready. One thing that we do on Friday, that's kind of important just because they go over the whole ride, is there is a mandatory safety meeting, Donna, but if you can't attend that starts on Friday at 9 a.m. But the team, you can always come to Jean, Teresa, or I, and we can kind of fill you in. It goes over the route, any questions you have, where the rest stops will be. So we kind of go through that. And then we all kind of do a fun warm-up ride. So we go through that meeting, and then everybody hops on their bike, and then we'll go out for like a mile ride just to make sure everything feels good. And then you kind of have the afternoon to either join a few seminars, or you can kind of have the afternoon to explore Burlington too. So any questions so far on like Friday?
What time will I need to be there by? I mean, like, there's just a dinner in the evening. Is that the only thing that everybody gathers for?
Yeah, so there is a dinner that starts at 6:30. So you'll want to be checked in and kind of settled to join that dinner. I'm actually super excited this year. I'm bringing 2 of my very good friends with me. They've been my supporters since I started. So they will be joining to see all of the excitement and all of the awards. And so that is Friday. It's at 6:30 to 8:30. And then everybody kind of disperses to get ready for the next morning.
But is there a check-in table somewhere? I see like numbers on the helmets and stuff like that. Where and when do I need to do that?
Yep, so that's perfect. So registration opens at 2:00 on Thursday, and then you also can pick up your packet in the morning on Friday. But if you need to pick it up in the afternoon, there'll be somebody available for registration, and I can get confirmation if there's not a dedicated table where that would be. So there's a couple things. You get your packet, so you'll get your number, you put on your helmet. You'll also get a I don't want to call it a bib, but you put it on the back of your jersey, and then you also will get a bike tag. So what happens is when you bring your bike to the bike room, they'll actually tag your bike and you'll leave it in the bike room. So they really want to make sure that everybody's bikes are in the bike room prior to the ride. And then the morning of the ride, you'll grab your bike from the bike room, and they'll make sure all your numbers match when you leave.
And
Yes,
where
Lindsay.
do I go? Where do I go for all this? Is it the hotel? Because I'm not staying at that hotel, but
Great question. So this is going to be at the main hotel at the Hilton.
Okay.
Yep. I'm also
And-
not staying at the hotel either. So I will be down the street camping with my family. Yeah.
okay.
And I was just going to say, if we're going to share this for all the first time riders, like you had said, Lindsay, that allowing yourself a little bit of time. I don't know what time you can arrive on Friday, but time to get into the bike room. Let them know you're a first time rider. If I'm not there or Lindsay is not there, like Lindsay said, they're phenomenal. So if you need help getting air in your tire, if you feel like you need an adjustment, they are there to help you, and they want to help you. So they're eager to get you all set up and help you understand like where to put your they'll put the bike tag right on for you, but just getting all of that squared away and settled before the dinner, I think, you'll know where your bike is before, you wake up the next morning. So for all of our first time riders, if there's that little buffer to get checked in and get settled, it would be great.
So that's what I should go to the Hilton when I get there first and drop the bike off and all that.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And what about other support? So what about a flat tire en route? Do I need to bring my own tube and all that kind of stuff, or?
So if you have it on hand, you can, but all of the coaches will be prepared, but the SAG vehicles are there to help you and really take over and do that for you. That's what they're there for. And there's a huge support staff all along the course, and they can certainly assist you with that. But coaches will have it. If you already have it with you, great. don't feel like you have to go stock up.
Yeah, no, it's a borrowed bike, so I didn't have any of the tubes.
And I think our ratio is 7 riders for every coach. So you got plenty of tension out there on the course.
Okay.
Yep.
So can I ask when does the course, I'm not a fast rider and I'd like to do the 100, but when does the course close? I mean, how long do I have?
So that's a great question. We talked about that last night, and there are certain sort of break points that we have a ride organizer who is an expert in this. And so if you, they'll have a cutoff. I'm trying to remember what it was. I think Vergen was 10 something, 10:45. Lindsay?
Yeah, I think I have it in my notes from last night, so I will look it up, but I think you're correct, 10:45.
And so, they map out pretty clearly that if you haven't gotten to that rest stop by that time, then they will turn you around because they would like everyone off the course by 5 o'clock for safety reasons and also to get to dinner that night. And, I'm a slower paced rider, so I'll probably be right out there with you, Donna.
Yeah, but you're not doing the whole thing.
I know I did confess to that. I've dropped it.
But they did indicate the course, typically the course is based on a 10-mile-an-hour average. This one's a little bit faster. So, but they will, if they'll be watching you, we'll actually send out some information about, I think all of the participants, Jean, correct me if I'm wrong, are going to use TrackQ Central.
Yes.
So we'll send out this information, but it's an app where they're going to be able to track all of the participants to see where they are on the course. And then there is a rest stop every 15-ish miles that you'll stop along the course. And in the packet that Lindsay sends out tomorrow, it has all the details of where the rest areas are. So you'll have that time to either know if you're going to have time to get back or if you can continue, and the coaching staff will be there to help you, and the support staff will be able to help you navigate the timing too.
How many riders are there?
There,
Let me see. I believe
I want to say there was
over 400.
430 something. I think I could be wrong.
Are there
38.
staggered starts or does everybody just
Yes.
go at once? Okay.
Yep. And, there's a head coach and they spread us out according to mileage and pace. So
Mhm.
there'll be sets of coaches in each of those groups.
Okay.
Yep.
And the morning of the ride, there's a breakfast at the hotel. So if you want to come over to the hotel and have breakfast, there is a breakfast available. And then the opening ride ceremony is in front of the Hilton, and it's starting at 6:45 in the morning. So it's an early morning. But there'll be a lot of excitement, a lot of energy, and there'll be lots of coaches in green jerseys that can certainly help you and support you along the way. So. All right. Anything else that I'm missing, Jean? I think that was everything, Lindsay, that you had me cover. Oh, team photo. But
Yeah. So we'll send out information to hopefully meet to get a whole big chapter photo of everyone who's participating. We're going to send out an email that will say, where we can all meet either Friday night or Saturday night, kind of after the event. And then the only other thing I was going to say, because I think, Lindsay, you're going to post this for everyone if they want it, is that the Burlington ride is hilly. So just make sure you kind of keep some gas in your tank. And I just always want to say, let's make smart decisions as riders. I know we kind of oversell, it's about the smiles, not the miles, but we really do want everyone safe out there. And don't beat yourself up if you're like, it's not happening and you need to, turn at the next rest stop and head in, because especially for our first time riders, it is a little bit of a hilly ride consistently throughout the whole course. So.
yes, that was one thing they did stress on the call yesterday to all the coaches, that it's hilly. Make sure you educate your riders and make sure they have some gas in the tank. So.
Yeah, when I finally looked at the course map, I was pretty discouraged because that hill right at the end is like, I'll never make that one.
You know what?
And
It
Donna, you should know, my Burlington was my first ride, and veteran riders kept talking about Irish Hill
Mhm.
in my presence. And I finally had to say, you need to be quiet and zip it because you're getting in my head. And sometimes there are coaches who they just are there kind of working people up the hill.
Mhm.
And there are people every year who clip out and walk up.
I was gonna say, that'll be me, I think, so.
Totally fine.
My first year in Saratoga, I looked at the coach. I think I was at like mile 80, and I was like, and he was great. I love him to pieces. His name's Keith. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm getting off my bike and walking. He's like, okay. And I needed to regroup. I walked up and then I continued on, and it was like, it was great, but don't ever feel discouraged. We are here to support you. And, again, smiles, not about miles.
So how worried should I be that I've only 50 is my longest so far, so, and
That's
if this
awesome.
weather,
That's
if this weather
fabulous.
doesn't break, there's no way I'm doing a longer one before the race or the ride, so.
I mean, you're getting the miles in. I think Jean was going to talk a bit about training, so this is probably a good transition into that. But
Okay.
you're riding. I'll be perfectly honest. You have ridden further than I have. My longest is 40 this so far. Outdoor. I mean, I've done a ton of indoor riding, but I think you're doing great.
Everything in the indoor.
Yep. And my longest is 36. Again, kind of the weather. We had that smoke that came down from Canada. So again, I think we encourage people to make smart decisions and not necessarily be out there inhaling smoke for 2 hours. I think one of the things that's been really educational for me this year on some of these coaches calls were coaches talking about alternative forms of training. So if you are, going to a gym, or Lindsay said, if you're riding at a cycle gym, or if you are doing yoga, one of the coaches even mentioned, if you're going for good walks, first, make sure you're just being physical and getting out there. I think the second aspect of it, like if you've done 50 miles in the saddle, Donna, that's part of the hurdle of training is really it's your seat and your shoulders. So if you kind of have worked that out, that's really the helpful part, because your legs may get you there, but it might be your back or your shoulders or, the saddle that it's the endurance of being out there all day. So I think cross training was a big piece that I learned this year, is to make sure you feel like you're out there and just doing something to get yourself physically prepared for the day. So, and then I think the other big part is kind of where are you at, mentally, like Lindsay said, to keep driving, but also, hey, you know what? I'm going to get off and walk a little bit, and then I'll maybe get back in and keep going. So I think 50 miles is actually great.
Okay. It didn't feel great, but it was, well, the first hour and a half was great, and then the sun came out and the humidity went up, and it was just like,
Yep.
That's the part I'm worried more about than anything. But
Yeah.
it'll be whatever it is. Nothing to, can't do anything about that. So,
And I think as you bring that up, I think the other thing for, Burlington and us here in New England is I would make sure you pack like an onion. My first ride, it was rainy and not particularly warm. So, if you have sort of a wind shell jacket, bring that. If you have a little light pair of gloves that you could cycle in, bring those. If you have maybe some little wool warmer socks, bring those. We really, in New England, we really just don't know what we get. I know we're all talking about it's hazy, hot, and humid right now, but quite honestly, we all know we could show up and it could be
right.
60 and raining. So
Yeah, I did not anticipate a 40-degree start in Tucson, Arizona. So I packed all of the things.
Yes.
So
yeah. And I think, training also to make sure on ride day that you are taking care of your body, whether you feel it or not. So hydration and nutrition should start Wednesday before the ride on Saturday. Making sure you're incredibly hydrated. When Rob and I rode on Saturday, I kept saying, or Sunday, I kept saying to him, water, water, water. And you'll see coaches out on the course and they'll hold up, water, drink your water. We were sweating so much that you weren't realizing that you may have been getting dehydrated when we were on our ride on Sunday. So just making sure you're really good, preparing how you train now to make sure you're hydrating on your ride. Get used to kind of grabbing your water bottle and making sure you're refueling. Certainly people will have all kinds of snacks as well on the ride. So I don't know if you've tried any of those kind of the goos or gummies or what works for you. To be honest, I'm kind of a natural girl. I did one ride with one of the scratch drinks and I had a pounding headache. So I just do water all day. And I'm like a banana watermelon girl at the rest stop. I don't do any of the goos or the gummies. So
I don't need to bring the rest stops will have snacks and stuff
my
like that. Is it?
gosh, the rest stops are loaded.
Okay.
They are loaded. For me, the one joy is it's the carte blanche day to down as many potato chips as I want. Because I don't do pickle juice, which is how most people kind of get salt back in them. So I just enjoy my potato chips all day.
And there's a special treat in Burlington, I believe. It's
Yes.
Scott Casper's mother has been making fudge and she brings it in ride. And then she has like, oh God, bunny crack or something. And it's like this mixture of like candy. I don't know, but it's great.
Yeah,
And it's
the bite crack. It's like a
bite crack. That's what it is.
It's like a Chex Mix, but with sugar and salt and yep, famous snacks. So yes, the rest stops are loaded with water, scratch mixes. Sometimes there are kind of sections of sandwiches, chopped up pickles, pickle juice, watermelon, all kinds of
Yeah.
fruit. So yep.
Great.
And I think it's just make sure you're doing that because sometimes people just go in, use the bathroom, leave. Like just be taking care of your body so it can have what it needs to kind of get you to keep going.
And how many riders are in this chapter? I mean, there's only a few people on the call, so I was kind of curious.
So we have just shy of 45 riders. So I
Okay.
can't remember the exact number. It's somewhere between 42 and 45. So, but the majority are coming to Burlington. We have 30 riders coming to Burlington. So it's going to be a big group. It's going to be very exciting. It'll be great for you to meet the rest of the team. And a good mix too. We've got, a handful of first-time riders, and then we've got some riders, this is their fifth ride. We've got people, I think Steve Berube up to like 15 or something crazy, but it's a good mix. So.
And the chapter photo you said, is that Thursday? Am I going to just miss that? Is that?
No, we wouldn't do that until either Friday or Saturday, either before or after those dinner events.
Okay.
So we'll sort that out.
Okay.
We'll make sure everyone has that information.
And Jeff, what ride this is number 9. Are you doing anything outside of Burlington?
Want to unmute myself. Yeah, so this is it'll be rides number 9 and 10 this year.
Okay.
So doing Burlington now and Death Valley in October. And my mileage in Burlington will be much lower than my prior mileage because I had a total knee replacement 3 months ago.
Oh, man.
So I'm working up. Honestly, I'm hoping to do 30 in Burlington. If I can do 30 in Burlington, I'll be fine. And my wife is actually coming as well. And if I'm pooped, she'll just pick me up. But I'm hoping to do the 30, and I'm hoping that by October, I certainly 50 is, I think, very doable by October, and maybe even the Century. But I'm happy to be back on the bike. I was training for a very aggressive ride to be done in August, not JDRF. And the little bit of cartilage I had left in my knee just ended. So if I was gonna continue biking, I needed a knee replacement.
Yeah. Well, I give you a lot of credit for after your knee replacement doing it and then coming to Burlington. So it's super exciting. And Obviously, we're really pumped that this is 9 and 10 for you, and any mileage is fantastic. So this is great.
And Lindsay, I think I forwarded to you one of my people who donated they have a foundation set up, so it had to come from a foundation. They couldn't like write a check or anything, and it was supposed to be a wire transfer. And I know they put Burlington Ride my name in it. I just was wondering if that's how that gets picked up, or if that gets, credited to my total.
Yeah, so once it comes in, the finance department will add it to your page. But if for some reason it's not in by the ride, I can also go in and add it on the back end. But I try not to do that too much just in case it gets double counted. But if
Sure.
If for some reason it's not in before then, we can add it
Okay.
as a soft credit, and then that way your total goes up.
How long do I have to hit the total? Does it have to be before the ride, or do I have like afterwards too, or how does that work?
So that is a great segue. We'll move on to the fundraising section. Oh, I hit the wrong space bar. Okay. Woo, there's Jean. All right. So we can just skip ahead. So we just have some tips and tricks up here. So you actually have until 30 days after the ride, before any cards are charged or anything like that. So all of your fundraising does not have to be done by the ride, which is, a bit of a relief because it's coming up in a couple weeks. So I didn't want anybody to panic and think that they have to be done fundraising by July 27th. But typically, so probably by the end of August, we would have you try to be at your minimum. But I know a lot of you on here already know fundraising pretty well, but we'll just go through this very quickly. So, I mean, the number one recommendation I can give you all is to just be creative and share your story and why you're riding. People want to support you as much as they want to support JDRF. So just being really open and sharing why it is that you're hopping on the bike and riding 100 miles. So storytelling is probably the best advice that I can give. And then, utilizing different milestones or getting creative with your goal setting. So a lot of people do this surrounding their anniversary or, how many years they've been living with type 1, just different things, or how many, what their blood sugar was at diagnosis. I've seen people use a different array of milestones, but just really being creative. And then sharing the information that you've heard tonight. I will send out the slides, but that is really powerful stuff. And, donors like to see that their money is making actual change. Their money is making actual change, and, JDRF is doing that. So, making sure that you're sharing all these exciting updates and, showing tangible items like here's what your dollar is actually doing, in the lives of people living with type 1. So we will be sure to share those slides. And then the typical letters, emails, text messages, casting a wide net, the statistic we hear all the time is it takes an average of 6 asks to get a donation. So don't be discouraged if you only ask 3 people and you haven't gotten a donation yet. But if you don't make the ask, the answer is always no. So just making sure that you're casting a wide net. I think, Jean, you have a great line with or was it Nancy Logan?
Well, yeah. So I always steal Nancy Logan's when I was at, my first year riding, and we were at a chapter gathering, and Nancy Logan's line was, if someone knew me well enough to come over and hug me at my daughter's soccer game, then you know me well enough for me to ask you. And I think sometimes that's the biggest hurdle. And certainly, Donna or Lindsay, for the two of you who don't have a direct story, right? It's unfortunately easier for me to dialogue about the impact on Michael. Everything from, like they were saying tonight, the mental health to the cost. Like I just got a fact the other day that the average out-of-pocket cost for someone with T1D is $9,000 a year. And I can tell you that for Michael as a young adult, that weighs heavily on his mind, because I need to have $9,000 extra every year to be able to just stay alive. And I think asking is the first thing, and then pick the portal that's comfortable for you. If it's emails, if it's writing a letter where you kind of put together some of those details, and kind of thinking about who the network is. You know, I've swept everyone from, this year was the first year I actually kind of through Snapfish made a little card and put it in the mailbox of our neighbors. And, you know, I ask college friends, family, friends, and I know everyone knows if you're friends with me on Facebook, that's clearly my biggest way that we raise our funds is just kind of, I post gratitudes on there, but social media may not be everyone's window. So you just kind of have to figure out what works for you and getting through kind of the discomfort of asking. And I always preface it saying, look, I know everyone has a cause that's near and dear to them, you know, but if you would consider a donation, we'd love it. And then, you know, Rob and I kind of have a kind of carte blanche rule that if someone gives to us and then I see that they're doing something for a cause that's near and dear to them, we try to reciprocate. Because I know what it's like to kind of have to try and go fundraise. And I believe another story, if I am remembering this correctly, Jeff, was you that you used to cover people's shifts. You kind of like sold out your soul at the hospital. Is that correct?
Yeah, I hoard myself a bit. I would take extra call. I would take an extra weekend of call. It was for a very sizable donation. This wasn't $100, $200. This was like a full weekend of call I would take and covering a hospital. But what I thought was more creative, and it was less financially successful, I also used to whore my body. And I would put tattoos on my temporary tattoos. And I would say, you know, and I would like, you know, for a leg, it was 50, for a leg is $50, you know, for arm was $100, whatever. And you can, you know, tell me what logo. I had this thing you put in the printer. You just put up and print out a temporary tattoo. And I did that for a couple of years. It was a gimmick, but yeah, it worked a bit.
Love it.
Yeah,
See
so
that.
it's sort of, if you have a talent, like I know one of the coaches, Dan and Megan Wolf, they send out cookies to kind of everyone. They have a big cookie palooza, you know, so it is, you may not know that you have sort of a talent that could contribute to inspiring people to want to give.
Yes. And it's good stewardship too. And thanking your donors is really important. So, and also like Jean mentioned, she's doing like the gratitude shout outs on social media. When somebody donates, it kind of gives you that like FOMO, like, oh, I want a shout out from Jean. So now I'm going to go and donate to her ride page. Like,
don't let everyone know that that's what I'm doing. The FOMO, the pressure, peer pressure.
yes, peer pressure works. So
Yes.
but the participant center is a great tool to use. You can import your contacts right through there. There's pre-templated emails in there. It keeps track of if you thanked your donors. It keeps track of, Donna, this wouldn't apply to you for this year, but for next year, it will show you like donors that gave last year that haven't given this year yet. So it's a really great tool to use. And then another one that a lot of people kind of forget about is just asking local businesses to support you. Walking into your local like mom and pop, a lot of them will give you $250 to $500. And you know, a few of those add up fast. So just not being afraid to ask is probably the biggest hurdle to get over. But yeah, I mean, this group is doing a great job with fundraising, but you know, just giving some fresh ideas in case people need them. But
Well, and the other thing, sorry, that I need to be better at reminding people who donate and finding a way to remind them is a lot of people work for companies that will match an employee.
yes.
So I know I have one friend, but she's given to me for years and she knows. And everyone may not know that. And it's no skin off of their back. The company just matches. If that employee of whatever company donates to a nonprofit, they will match it. So
Right.
And my company, we're a small startup. So our company actually gives what's called Forma dollars. They give you $200 a year to actually give to a charitable donation. So they spotlighted me last week, the email went out with the ride links and basically encouraged folks to use their form of dollars. And that went out to 500 employees globally. So, you know, just going to your employer and seeing how they will support you. Our company also uses Slack. So we're all globally and remote. So I use my good old friend ChatGPT and put together a nice verbiage and sent it out with a picture and pictures of rides I've done in the past, and had them click on the link and they just donate right there. So it's, you know, shameless plug, but it works. It's amazing how much you'll raise. Donations, I got over thousands. I got $1,000 in just fundraising donations for raffle prizes I did a fundraiser at my local gym, and the raffle prizes brought in half of that money.
Yep.
All right. So Q&A, we've done a lot of that, but we can keep it going if you guys have any other questions and shout outs. I mean, all of you on this call are doing an amazing job. So kudos to all of you. Donna, I mean, it's your first ride. That's so incredible and exciting. Jeff, you know, after the full knee replacement and still going for it and ride number 9, and your fundraising's been incredible. And Jean and Lindsay, of course, you guys are just both amazing. And Jean, I see you're so close to your goal.
I know. I know.
I might actually have to donate some of my money to you just to get over the goal, because I'm like, I want to see it.
You're so close, but you guys can feel free to shout each other out too. I mean, we have so many team members who aren't able to be on the call that are also doing an incredible job as well. And I do want to shout out, I don't know if you guys know, but Sabrina Porter, those of you who know her, she is not able to come to the Burlington ride this year. Her family is coming, but she's currently doing a cross-country ride, which is incredible. I think right now she's out in Colorado, but we'll have to send out her little Instagram handle because she's been documenting it and it's been amazing. But I just thought that was really cool to shout her out. But
I would love to follow that, Lindsay, if you don't
Yeah.
mind sending that out, because I rode my first ride in Saratoga with her and her dad. So that was
That would be great.
Yeah.
Maybe we can
I
include
just-
that in our little email.
I just jumped on. This is Megan Higgins. Were you guys
Hi.
just chatting about Sabrina?